And that is a wrap on 30 years, 3 decades plus of WWE RAW on the USA Network. Obviously, there was hiatuses within those 30 years, RAW on Sci-Fi or Spike TV. What about TNN? If anybody remembers TNN, the Nashville network. But for the most part, in totality, RAW was synonymous with the USA Network. Even when it went to Spike or Sci-Fi, TNN, I still found myself tuning into USA Network first because it was just natural. It was second nature, right? I still thought RAW on USA, and maybe I'll do that for a few weeks while it's on Netflix, right? I'll go to USA first and then go, oh wait, nope, it's streaming now. That's right. But I always tell you guys, man, no matter how bad WWE was getting, we still tune in out of 2 things every Monday night: habit and hope. Habit because we've been doing it since we were little kids, tuning in to this show, this product, on this night, at this time, on this station. Habit and hope, hoping it gets better by the week. Habit and hope is why a lot of us still tune in to this day, even if we believe the product is not as good as it should be. Habit and hope. A big part of that habit was the USA Network. And as I said, even when it was on a different station, I'd still go to USA. It was synonymous. To me, you couldn't have one without the other. So I am not over-dramatizing or over-exaggerating the magnitude of this event, of this occurrence, of this situation with RAW leaving the USA Network tonight. Because it just went off the air, because I wanted this to be the most, as we always pull off on this channel. I wanted this, like all of the other reviews, to be the most honest you're going to get in this community. And I felt the best way was to deliver a raw, passionate, amplified review immediately after the show. And CM Punk and Seth Rollins was the final visual for RAW on USA. That was the final segment as we faded to black and went off the air. And a phenomenal face-off, back-and-forth promo between Seth and CM Punk. We'll go over that in this review. But that's it, because I do feel that RAW will never go back to USA. In 10 years, when this deal with Netflix is up, the wrestling landscape will be totally changed by then, and so will the cable industry. I just don't see RAW ever going back to USA. I think that is the end of this era. And I hate to use that word because we always try to fancy the word these days, right? Try to put a cute little word in front of era. Try to get back what we once had in the Attitude Era or Ruthless Aggression. So these days we're always trying to think of a cute name, right? It's the Hunter Hearst Helmsley era. And then Hunter says, no, it's the Netflix era. BC calls it the Mutual Respect era. So I don't like saying the word era, but this is truly the end of an era. And whatever happens next week, whatever begins next week, I won't even say it's a new era per se, but it's going to be something totally new we've never seen before. It's never been done before. We may think we know what to expect, but we don't. They, the wrestlers, the suits and ties, Hunter Helmsley, Ari Emanuel, Endeavor, may think they know. They don't know. This is unlike anything we've ever witnessed, and I do feel bad for those that will no longer be tuning into Monday Night Raw. Either they're traditionalists to the core, they wouldn't know how to work a Netflix, a Roku, an app, a streaming service if their life depended on it. I feel bad for them because I doubt they're going to change it now because of Raw, and for those that just can't afford it. To a lot of you guys, $10, $15 may not sound like a lot, but to a lot of individuals, it's a lot of money when you're getting charged that every month, when bills are already piling up and credit is stacking up and debt is at an all-time high. And now Netflix wants to take $10 to $15 from you. A lot of people are not going to be able to watch Raw anymore. It's more money that they just simply cannot afford. I feel bad for those individuals. That's done. It was hard enough to afford to get cable. A lot of people, unfortunately, that was their last Raw. That's the reality of the situation. A lot of people don't think of that, and I understand. Right? A lot of people just want to talk about the product, the show, the wrestlers, the stories. But there's a whole nother gray area that has not even been tapped into and spoken about. And that's just how much changes next week and how many fans that have been there from day one can no longer continue that ride with the WWE. And it's sad. But the other flip side is it's that new feeling. Something definitely had to change. The Raw product was stale. It's been stale for years under Vince and Kennedy McMahon, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley didn't do much better. The numbers showed us that. It needed a kick in the ass. It needed a pulse. It needed a lifeline. Netflix may have been the recipe for hopefully what will become success once again. But this, tonight, that was it. 30 years over 3 decades. And CM Punk, Seth Rollins doing the send-off. It's wild. It's all I've ever known for WWE when it started back in 93. And here we are in 2024, about to be 2025. And SmackDown will have to carry that torch until their deal ends. And I think that's when USA Network is going to finally call it a wraps, call it for good. I don't think they're going to renew after that. It doesn't look like the SmackDown numbers are up to par. And if you go years down the road, I don't see them going up, unfortunately. Unless the product really catches heat. Gets really hot. But that's my cold open teaser, guys. I wanted to spend the cold open teaser on just the magnitude of this being the final Raw ever on cable television. And what happens next week is a totally different Raw product. Whether we like it or not, whether we think so right now or not. It's just different. It all changes next week. And I don't know if that's for better or worse. We will find out. But that was it on cable television. No more Raw. I've never known a WWE Raw that wasn't on cable. So none of us have. So it's just, there's so many so many unanswered questions, man. But again, I do feel for everybody that is not able to catch Raw going forward. You guys, you'll always have the channel. You'll always have BC to rock out the reviews and to tell you exactly what happened, what you missed and may want to try to find and highlight somewhere, or what you saved yourself time by not watching. I will always have you guys, man. Just as we're about to do right now with the Raw 12/30/24 review, the final Raw ever on the USA Network. I say we get to it, man. That was your cold open, a final send-off, a final salute to Raw on USA. Big thanks to USA for believing in WWE and giving us that place to go every Monday. Especially when times were rough and Vince didn't know if he was going to get a TV deal, and USA was right there. Bonnie back in the day, remember Bonnie? She was there and she offered Vince that deal time after time. And every Monday night we got to kind of congregate to this one special place, and whether it was a good show or not, we all got to sit back, max, relax, and pro wrestling got us through a lot. So one last time, man, Raw on USA. Salute. So let's go, man. Did this show send off the finality of Raw on USA the right way, right? Was this a top to bottom, beginning to end, start to finish, kick-ass show? Well, you've already heard what I thought about or at least my initial thought on Rollins and Punk. That was really good. The problem is, there was another hour and 45 minutes of this show, and that was not up to par. And it started with the very first segment. I know a lot of you guys don't watch the show. You just tuned into BC, so moving to Netflix won't really bother you much, right? You've already been doing this routine. But if you are one of those individuals that just trust BC to be your number one source for this wrestling thing that we love, but you can't put yourself through multiple hours on prime time anymore, multiple days out of the week, I totally understand. I thank you for trusting BC with these reviews. But I'm telling you right now, if you did not catch this show, the first 15 and a half minutes, a lot went on while simultaneously nothing at all went on. And what I mean by that is a lot happened, But nothing happened. It was all fluff filler. I think Hunter just said, if we have a lot of moving parts, people will think it's fun chaos. And in the first 15 minutes, they'll go, you know what? This show is spontaneous. Anything can happen. This is good. But just listen, guys. This is what I mean. This is not my opinion on anything. I'm not just being negative or overcritical. I'm not nitpicking. If you didn't catch this show, this is what happened, guys. This is not anything that I am embellishing. This is what happened in the first 15 and a half minutes. New Day started the show. I love the boos, right? The crowd's getting into the boos, giving them the Dominic Mysterio treatment. WWE, however, does need to understand they don't need to pipe in the extra boos. That's what they fail to realize. It's beyond noticeable, and it just doesn't sync up with the audience giving the boos. And they've always done it for Mysterio, and now they're doing it for the New Day. And trust me, if you're one of those individuals that thinks they're not piping in boos, trust me, they are. I've had multiple people in many arenas already tell me flat out that they can hear it in the speakers. But all you have to do is sync it up with the audience at hand. And if you don't think they were doing it for Mysterio, there's no conversation to be had because we already know factually they were. They botched many times. And what I mean by botched is when they were piping it in, the crowd, for whatever reason, just stopped booing. Like they stopped their chant, their boo. But the piped in version never got the memo. So it kept going. But if you look at the crowd, nobody was booing. And the piped in boos were extra loud. It didn't sync up at all. I mean, the crowd literally stopped. And this happened a couple of times. That's what I mean about they botched it. But that's how we know factually they were doing it with Dominic. And now with the New Day, you're starting to see it just not sync up. They don't need to do that, man. They're already getting the boos. Just let it be organic. Because, and always remember what I'm about to say, guys, things will only get over and remain over if it's organic. If it's manufactured, it'll never progress. Always remember that. If it's manufactured, it's never going to progress. Look at Dominic Mysterio. That's a big reason why he has plateaued. It's unfortunate. Remember just several months ago when he was getting those boos and we go, oh, dude, this guy's going to be one of the biggest heels in the industry. But he plateaued. There was a ceiling because they were manufacturing, man. That's only going to get you so far. And people are going to eventually catch on. And we're not going to be able to get to the point where the manufactured boos are. So it's not going to be fun anymore. Let it be organic. That's going to be beneficial to the wrestlers and to the company and to the fans in totality. So that's just some food for thought, guys. If you didn't see the show, the New Day's getting a lot of the Dominic Mysterio boos. A lot of it's natural. Keep it that way. You don't need the piped in boos. WWE, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, stop. Hunter loves piping in boos. He loved the Thunderdome. He loves to manipulate the audience. He loves to manufacture responses. That's something Hunter loves. He loved the Thunderdome. I can't stand that at all. Organic, natural reactions. That's the only way they're going to properly get over and remain over. That's it. That's all I'm going to say about it. Now back to this. New Day is just getting boos, and that's really it, guys. Jason Uso comes to the ring. Jay says, and I quote, "I only have one thing to say, Us. New Day sucks." That's all he says. New Day leaves the ring. Guys, this is what happened. I'm not nitpicking. I'm not being over negative. I'm literally telling you what happened in this first 15 and a half minutes, and it doesn't make sense. It's just not fun. It doesn't lead to anything. The New Day gets boos. Jay comes out, says New Day sucks, and New Day leaves the ring. Then Jey Uso calls out Drew McIntyre. Instead, he gets the bootleg Bloodline on the Tron. And Solo Sikoa goes over the same old... He just recites the same old tired line that he's been reciting for months now. You, Jey Uso, and everyone else will acknowledge me as your tribal chief. That's it. That's all he says. And then McIntyre shows up behind Uso, takes him out. Refs in suit and ties break it up. Drew is able to still connect with a Claymore to end the segment. And the funny part was that Drew kind of missed his cue. He was going up the rampway, hands up, like, all right, too many referees. I'm not going to disobey. But he forgot to turn around and deliver the Claymore, or he got too far. Because you can see the referee who was kind of escorting him up the aisle tap him on the side of his ass. Like, tap him, like, dude, now. And then Drew's like, all right, that's my cue. I'm like, bro, what are you... The ref literally just... That was a botch and a half, dude. I guess Drew just went past the line he was supposed to have already turned down. So Hunter's screaming at the ref, dude, stop him. He's got to go back and Claymore. It was bad, guys. It was really bad. But I can't even just shit on that because the whole segment was just bad. That was it. That was it, guys. If you didn't watch the show, you're thinking, BC, wait, everything you just said, what did it lead to? What was the purpose? That's my point. Guys, there was nothing. I'll recap it in 10 seconds right now. New Day came out. They got booed. Jey Uso came out, said New Day sucks. So New Day got their feelings hurt and left. Jey then calls out Drew, gets Solo Sikoa on the Tron in the bootleg Bloodline. He says, you'll acknowledge me as your tribal chief. Drew attacks Jey. That's it. Nothing. What is it? Does that lead to another Drew Jey match? We've already seen it. Plenty of times. In the past. Plenty of times. We've already heard Solo say that everyone's going to acknowledge him as a tribal chief 1,000 times. The New Day, for the 8th week in a row, has gotten their feelings hurt with the boos. I get it. But, I mean, there's no way that they can produce that 15 and a half minutes and then BC does an honest review. We're not going to sugarcoat. We're not going to bullshit to my audience. I'm supposed to do an honest review and say, what? This was so good. This was so much chaos. It was so much fun and spontaneity. Like, man, you didn't know what was happening, right? Jey Uso comes out and then all of a sudden Solo's on the Tron. Then Drew attacks from behind. It was wildness. It was nothingness. That's the truth. That's the honest truth, man. I wanted to, I had, maybe not my hopes were set high. I know better with a Hunter Hearst Helmsley product, but my expectations were a notch maybe elevated. I really had higher expectations, even if just a little bit higher expectations as we leave the USA Network. And this first 15 and a half minutes was just, I mean, if Hunter's cooking, get him out of the kitchen because he's burning the place down. This is the opposite of creative. This is stupidity. That's just the truth. Let me get a swig of coffee. We'll go into the first match of the night. This was Jonathan Gable versus Otis. I can't say Otis. Otis actually was what he once was, right? Was that Otis? Otis. Where am I getting that from? Was he with Mansoor? No, that was Mansoor and Massey. That's what. Then what the hell am I thinking? Otis. I thought he was with somebody that named him Otis. That's gonna bug me. Anyway, Otis. But I'm sticking with Jonathan, damn it. Jonathan Gable. Chad Gable. Otis. Gable defeats Otis via tap-out submission. I mean, I'm trying to entertain myself, I guess, because I have nothing that I can give you in this review that is going to make this match any more special than it was, because it just wasn't. Jonathan defeats Otis via tap-out submission. They had Otis tap out middle of the ring. Interesting booking decision. Not one that I would have done. But at least Jonathan Gable got a W. I can't believe I'm saying that. Chad Gable got a W on Monday Night Raw. So sorry, not sorry, Otis. But at this point, Gable is years behind where he should be. Gable should have already been in PLE main events and a bunch of championships and trophies and accolades. Some people don't need championships and trophies and accolades, by the way. Undertaker, Bray Wyatt. They could go years without a title, a trophy, and an accolade, and they're still going to be larger than life and superstars. But Chad Gable is a character that would be built to get trophies, championships, and accolades. Dude's got nothing, basically. So it sucks that it's at the expense of Otis, but it's Chad Gable. W after W after W, but more importantly, he needs good booking after good booking decision after good booking decision. Solid creative every single week. Book him in feuds we care about, storylines that intrigue us and grasp us and our attention. That's Chad Gable. He's so damn good. He can rock the microphone. He can go in the ring. He can put storylines on his back. What are we doing with Chad Gable? This match was even weird. This was a hot feud several months ago, when he was an asshole and Otis was about to break up with him, and he gives a simplistic push, and that was it. Hunter then put Chad Gable with the Creed brothers and had him go against the Wyatts for the next couple months. Here we are at the end of 2024, and all of a sudden Otis and Chad Gable have their match. It's weird. But that's what happened. If you didn't catch the show, or even if you did catch the show, and you want to hear BC's take on it, I don't know what other twist I can put on this match. What other narrative I can give you? This is what happened. Otis just taps out middle of the ring. I don't know if that's the best booking for Otis, but at least Gable got a W. That's what I put in my notes. That's how I feel. Not much else I can tell you about it. Next up, P.D. Dunne attacks R-Truth before their match in the aisleway. It was just a little attack, right? Just hits him in the back of the dome piece with his elbow, something like that. Maybe a few extra boots. Referees, suits and ties are coming out, right? Because that's what Hunter does. He just sends out a bunch of refs in suits and ties 10 times a show, make it look chaotic. And they back up P.D. Dunne, and then they cut to the back to Kathy Kelly. And Dakota Kai and Io Sky doing a promo backstage with Kathy Kelly. No match. That simplistic attack. And the Pete Dunne R-Truth match was yanked. And you know what the funny part is? That's probably for the best. We've already seen this a couple weeks ago. We saw R-Truth pin P.D. Dunne clean. There was no need to see this match again. 3 months. And the only story that's being told is Pete Dunne is upset because R-Truth calls him Butch. 3 months of that storytelling, and you question why BC and many fans are saying Hunter is not cooking at all. He doesn't even know how to pop in a ramen noodle in a cup of noodle in the microwave. You question that when this is what's cooking? This is what we're getting on Monday Night Raw, so it was actually a blessing in disguise that they yanked that match. The bad news is we're probably going to get it next week on Netflix. And then we had a women's IC title semi-final. This was Zoey Stark and Dakota Kai. So, Dakota wins clean via pinfall to advance in the finals. So, Zoey gave it a gallant effort. But they did advance Dakota. So, I was thinking, all right, this is where Hunter's probably going to do a damage control, right? Not implosion, but a damage control singles matchup. Dakota Kai and Io, right? Io is going to beat Val later on, and that's what he's going to set up. Face versus face, partner versus partner, title on the line. I'm like, whatever, man. Maybe there's a little intrigue in there. I'm going to try to find some intrigue. That's actually not what he did, guys. And we have to wait on that because that was insane. I want to go in order here, in flow. But the Val versus Io match did not go the way BC thought it was going to go. But for this one, before we get to that, Dakota defeats Zoey. And that was clean via pinfall, middle of the ring. So then, like I said, Dakota moves on to the finals. That's why I thought he was definitely going to go Io in the next matchup over Val. That's big for Dakota. I mean, she's had a rough go at it since she's gotten to the main roster. Injuries, time off, personal situations. But to be here for Dakota Kai, I feel like she's finally starting to get her groove back. Audience is finally given a chance to be like, all right, I'll give this girl a second chance. You know, what we saw in NXT, now a lot of fans on the main roster get to see. That's really cool. We ended hour number 1 with a video package showing 30 years of Raw on USA, and it was really cool. They left out so much. They tried to add a lot of the newer stuff, which unfortunately it cannot hold a candle to what we got in the first 20 some odd. But, they really wanted to show like, oh, what we have now in this era, man, it's just as good and all the highlights. No, they left out some of the best stuff back in the day, but it is what it is. It was still pretty cool, man. I literally stopped what I was doing, pen down, coffee stayed to the wayside, and I was glued to what they were showing me because I know how special it is. 30 years. A lot of you guys maybe were not around for all 30, but I know there was a lot of you guys that probably were, and you were probably a little kid like BC when the first episode aired ever, and you remember little moments that were so big, not so little, right? Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid, Macho Man getting crushed by Crush, Yokozuna crushing Crush, just things like that, man. Never forget that. Bobby Heenan getting thrown out of the Manhattan Center. Moments, man, when it all first began, we never could have thought that this would last 3 decades plus, and here we are saying goodbye to the USA Network. But it was 30 years. It was a good highlight package, man, and that's how we ended hour number 1. I thought it was a pretty cool look back. Again, there were so many moments that were left out, but it's a 3 to 4 minute package. And then we went into hour number 2 in the most uneventful way imaginable. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Hunter would probably find another way to make it even more unimaginable. But this was a Damien Priest War Raiders versus Judgment Day 6-man tag. And Damien and the Raiders defeat the Judgment Day. It was Priest pinning Mysterio via South of Heaven. Nothing more in my notes. Nothing more to speak on. Let's just move on. This was a weird filler segment, very odd. Ludwig Kaiser is middle of the ring, and he calls out Bron Breakker. We've already seen this, man. Enough. It's a heel versus a heel. Now, this is where you say, BC, no, Bron is more of a face these days. But says who? When he shook Jay's hand and he was a face, a week later, Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, changed his mind, and he had him attack Jey Uso. Then all of a sudden, he's set up in this matchup with Sammy, but he's asking where the dogs are at to pander to the crowd. I say this all the time, guys. I've said this like a broken record. He's a face, he's a heel, he's a tweener. He doesn't know what he is. Hunter doesn't know what he is. And in return, we don't know what he is. It's weird. But what we do know, most of us, is Ludwig versus Braun is not the money match. But for some reason, he's calling him out again. But even stranger, the IC champion, once again, is not even on the show. He never is. Right? Bron Breakker's the IC title holder, and I have to remind myself several times a week when we're going over uploads or I'm recording, I have to remind myself that he even has the championship. That's how irrelevant Bron Breakker is. So Ludwig calls him out, and instead he gets Sheamus. Sheamus comes to the ring. Sheamus knocks out Ludwig. And we go to the back or commercial, one of the two. That was the segment, guys. And this is what I mean. You can say Hunter's cooking. You can say BC, it's a little negative twist. Can't you be a little bit more positive? About what? What do you want me to say? This was weird when it was in real time. Looking back on what actually happened and occurred, it was even stranger. I understand filler on a show, but make it interesting and entertaining. Make it make sense. This was stupid. So what are we going to get, guys? We're going to get a triple threat now. Ludwig, Sheamus, and Braun. We just got something like that recently, didn't we? Was it Jey Uso? It was Ludwig, Braun, and somebody else. Maybe it was Jey Uso, maybe Sami Zayn, I forget. But I could have sworn we just did a triple. It looks like they're doing the same exact thing. Weird filler segment. And then the final match of the night, main event match, but not the main event segment that was reserved for a face-off between Seth and Punk. But the main event match was Io Sky versus Valkyria. This was a women's IC title tourney semi. The winner of this goes to the finals to take on Dakota Kai. Valkyria pins Io clean. Clean. So this start, stop, momentum, push, stop for Io continues. It looks like they're really behind her. They carry some momentum. They let her carry some momentum, some W's, some big W's in a row, and then they just yank her back a mile. This was very odd. It looked like she had a head of steam, some momentum. She was rocking out recently. And all of a sudden, Val, out of nowhere, just takes her out and goes to the finals. It's still face versus face. Dakota versus Valkyria. It's face versus face, so there's no reason you shouldn't have just done Io and Dakota. At least there's semi of an underlining story there, right? They're partners. It's Damage Control. And they're going for the first ever women's IC championship. I mean, they're going to go to that next level. Friendship is getting thrown to the wayside. But instead, we went Val Dakota. I still think if done correctly and they give them ample amount of time, they believe in them, they believe in themselves, they go with full gusto and confidence, and they throw any hesitation to the wayside, I think Val and Dakota will put on a hell of a match. I just hope people care. And just don't think of it as, two faces. One of them's going to outface the other. Who do we cheer for? We'll just sit there and we'll golf clap. I hope that's not the case. I think they said 2 weeks, so that's not on Netflix next week, guys. I think in 2 weeks. So it will be on Netflix, but just not the premiere. I think is when they're going to crown a new champion. The first ever IC Women's Champion. So again, the final is Dakota Kai, Valkyria. And then it was time for the final segment in the 30-year plus run of WWE RAW. I can speak, more coffee. Raw on the USA Network. And it was CM Punk, Seth Rollins face to face. This was easily the best part of the night. We had to wait an hour and 50 minutes to get to it. But these dudes absolutely went at one another. CM Punk literally just calling out Seth Rollins on him. He's the one that just tried to kind of rip at CM Punk and his rep. And he's the one that wanted to believe so bad that CM Punk was so bad for the industry. But in reality, he never wavered from who he was. He always said he was there to make money, not friends. He said 10 years ago he had to leave for himself. And if it wasn't for him, there would be no Seth Rollins and such. So it's CM Punk's honesty. Whether it's truth or not, it's Punk's truth. I mean, there was such conviction in his words. Like, he believed every word of it, and that's what he's telling Seth, his side. To which Seth was responding, man. Seth, and even Punk called him little brother, too. That really heated Seth up. He's like, don't you little brother me, because I'm big brother now. And he started talking about CM Punk literally taking his ball and going home. But once he left WWE, he did everything he could to kind of pick apart at him and say all this nasty stuff and try to rip the reputation of WWE and everybody that's still there. And a lot of that was true. That's what pissed off BC and a lot of you guys, man. It's because when Punk left, he was bitter. And you could say he had every reason to be, right? Papers on his wedding day. I totally get it, guys. But he was so bitter that every chance he got, he was ripping away at pro wrestling in totality. And it's like, dude, stop. It's how you got your name. It's the reason people chant your name. It's the reason you're a multi-millionaire. Let's not totally act like pro wrestling is the drizzling shits. Because that's what he tried to do. And everything he did, he tried to act like it was so much better. He tried to go into Hollywood. Oh, this is way better than wrestling. He tried to go to UFC because this is real fighting and pro wrestling is nowhere close. It's pathetic. There was this bitterness that really started to eat away at a lot of fans and get them thinking, like Seth Rollins, man, a lot of the wrestlers had enough. They said, dude, shut up, stop. We understand there was a horrible falling out between you and the company, but this is not a way to do business. So Seth was kind of in a roundabout way. He was bringing all that up, or actually straight up. BC's kind of like broadening out his words, but in a straight up way, he was bringing all that up. And then he even brought up, like, you went over to the competition. How did that work out for you? He actually brought up AEW without saying the letters. That drew an "oh" from the crowd. You know, one of the biggest disses he did was because Punk was talking about, like, you say I took my ball and went home. Did Stone Cold do that? What about the Mon, Becky Lynch? I haven't seen her around in a while. Did she take her ball and go home? So when Seth responded to that, Seth said, Becky, the man, she's at home. She's taking some time off to raise her kid, her child. I know that's something you know nothing about, he told Punk, and that drew an even bigger because Punk doesn't have kids, and some people just choose not to. Some people don't want to have kids. I know Jonathan Cena's the same way. They just don't want to have kids. Little Larry, his dog, is basically his kid. So when he said that really struck a chord with a lot of people that choose just not to have kids or don't want them. That's a choice. And they shouldn't be looked down upon for such. So when he said that to Punk, Punk was just like, you son of a... That was such a good moment, though. And if people didn't think it got real up until that point, it was real going forward. So there's nothing in my notes with this. This is all, like I said, this review is being conducted and recorded right after the show. So I'm just trying to remember everything just based on how I viewed it, guys. I have nothing in my notes. So that's just a lot of it, but not everything. So if you didn't catch the show, the one thing I will tell you, guys always trust BC to tell you to go back and see something if it was good. And if nothing was, I just saved you 2 hours. Well, if you didn't catch the show, I will tell you this. If you have time, it's only going to take about 10 minutes. Check out that segment. Punk Rollins was really good. And it's not a wasted 10 minutes, guys. I promise you that. You're going to really enjoy this back and forth promo. A lot of good back and forth. And Punk just ends it with talking about how he took many arrows when he left. But the cool thing is, after a few years, he took a lot of those arrows out. After a few more years, he took all the arrows out. And after a few more years, he was ready to come back with all those arrows in hand. And January 6th, Netflix, he's going to take all those arrows and shove it right down Seth Rollins' throat. To which Rollins came back and said, the thing with you, Punk, is you're a C. We're not going to say the word. But you're a C in the pro wrestling world. It rhymes with dancer. But take the D out and put C in there. We don't say that, right? He says the thing with that word is it doesn't cure itself. You have to cut it out. And January 6th, Netflix, I'm going to cut it out. Meaning CM Punk. And he says, you're going to be gone another 10 years, but it's not going to be by choice this time. He says, this time, it's because I will have forced you out. Really good. Really good, man. Seth Rollins and CM Punk. It really did save the show. Unfortunately, the show was so mediocre that it didn't save it to the point where it was a good show. But it saved it in terms of there was something positive to talk about. Something that was really good. Something that captivated us. We just had to wait $1.50 into the show to get to it. And that's where Hunter is just so far off pace. But hopefully everything is going into this big Netflix move. Listen, it's WrestleMania season starting next week. It's not the Rumble. January 6th is going to start WrestleMania season. That's when The Rock is showing up, John Cena, everybody. So, I mean, Hunter, you'd have to go out of your way to be bad to ruin WrestleMania season. Even Vincent Kennedy McMahon, as bad as Raw has been the last 10 years, in the years under Vince, WrestleMania season was always fun. It always turned the tide. It always was when everything good was starting to unfold. So, no matter what, I'm guessing business is going to pick up. It's going to become a lot more fun. It's going to become a lot more intriguing. How much credit goes to Hunter for that? How much did we give Vince? We didn't. It's WrestleMania season. You'd have to go out of your way and internal sabotage this whole thing to make it go off the rails. So I don't want bare minimum. It's WrestleMania season. We know it's going to pick up. I need Hunter to get uber creative. Take it to the next level. And who knows, in the process, make a lot of people that maybe they have the money, but they just don't want to go to Netflix. They don't want to pay money to get a streaming service just for Raw. No, thank you. But maybe make your product so damn good that they have to look twice, maybe 3 times, and start to think, $10, $15. I'm hearing it's getting a lot better. I'm gonna try this Netflix thing out. It's okay if you put together your best possible product and bring more viewers to the yard. It's okay if you do that, Hunter. You don't have to produce mediocre television week after week and make people leave your product. This was a mediocre show, and it's sad to say that because it was the last one on the USA Network. But the cool thing is the last visual, the last segment, that was damn good. And that's how I want to remember Raw on USA. with something positive. So that's it, guys. That's what I have on the Raw 12/30/24 final Raw ever on the USA Network review. I want to again say salute to USA Network and salute to all of you guys that have caught most of these Raws on USA over the last 30 years, bro. Plus, BC was right there with you for just about, if not all of them. I truly believe that Raw will never go back to the USA Network or cable television, to be honest. In 10 years, cable television will be totally different than what we know it as today, and the pro wrestling world will be completely different to how we know it today. So this is truly, man, I don't want to over-dramatize it, but it's truly the end of a wild era that we were all a part of on this wild roller coaster ride. Monday Night Raw, where it began, what it became, and saying goodbye to it today in the way that we know it. Because starting next week, no idea. I have no idea. This is something completely new, and we begin this crazy new journey, man. It's a whole new ride we're getting on. So I'm just glad that we're all doing it together, man. Salute, guys. 44 dive. That's a wrap. Until next time, and there will be that next time, BC in the unit saying check you. Salut.